Hi, my name is Frank Zacarri, and this is Life-Altering Events. Now, when I moved from radio to television, I was asked, why are you moving to television? And so it was very simple. Many of us, or most of us, have had enough of the negative and hostile talk shows. This model, or that model, has been going on far too long. And it's time for an interview show that focuses on positive news. I want to show that highlights that the issues that we have in common are so much greater than what divides us. Now, what are these issues? Everybody has them: life, love, family, passion, fulfillment. And I will bring you guests that will inspire, motivate, and challenge you to become the best version of yourself. So today we're going to talk about it's never too late. Now, some of us are lucky, and we get to start off life in a happy and loving family home. Now, while that doesn't guarantee that we're going to have a good life, we at least have a good role model to fall back on. Others, not so lucky. The absence of love and affection and positive affirmation can linger for a lifetime. Feelings like low self-esteem, I'm not good enough, I'm afraid to get involved, depression, sadness are very, very hard to overcome. Yet despite having a bad start, there are opportunities that if you're paying attention and if you're willing to take action, in spite of all this baggage, that can take your life in a direction you never dreamed possible. It's never too late to have the life that you want and you deserve. Now, my guest today is Susan Rooks, who says that she is a child of the 50s. And she followed the expected path, but felt it just didn't work. And that she would be doomed to a life that she did not want. So, Susan, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you so much for having me, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. When we talked, ladies and gentlemen, this is an intriguing woman. She's got a great story. Now, Susan, you said that you were a child of the 50s. Mm-hmm. And what was the expected way of life back then for young girls and women?
Well, the expected way of life was very simple. Girls grew up, got a fiance, got a husband, and could work for a year or two before babies. But after that, you were home. You could get a college education, but you weren't really going to be using it the way we expect people to do it today. And it was hard for me because I didn't really have my mindset on being a wife or a mother. Right. I didn't have it set elsewhere, but I didn't have it set there. But that was a very smothering kind of time in the 50s. We'd come out of the World War II. Everything was pretty much the same for a lot of people, not all, but a lot. And that was the expectation of my family's social group. This is what we all did. Everybody went out and pretended they were all thrilled with this. I pretended pretty well. A lot of it was very good, but it never felt like a comfortable fit. Not really, not for me. Mm-hmm. And so something else that you and I didn't talk about is when we're talking life-altering events, from my birth on, I'm an adopted kid. Mm-hmm. I was adopted at birth. Two people got together a whole lot of years back. I don't know if it was one night or a big thing. They created me. And so my parents that kept me, the ones that adopted me, couldn't have kids. They didn't think they could have kids. She tried for 3 years and couldn't have kids. So they adopted me. And I have to say, Frank, that was, you want to talk life altering? I have no idea what my life would have been had I stayed with the woman who gave birth to me. I have no idea. I don't know enough about that whole situation. I know a little bit. But that was the beginning of knowledge that I was loved because of all the things these two people did well, and they did a lot well. They told me from day one, we adopted you. We chose you. There were other babies we could have had. They went through a whole bunch of scenarios that you learn when you're 12 years old. Yeah, that's not how it works. But it doesn't matter by then. I was very secure, even when they had my brother 3.5 years later. You know, one pregnancy, a miracle baby kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I felt completely their daughter. There was not the slightest doubt about it. And I'll give them all the credit in the world because we're talking the 1940s and 1950s. I don't know to this day how they knew enough to do that, which colored my whole life in terms of I felt okay about that fact. So yeah, the 50s were interesting for a lot of girls like me because the path wasn't clear, and the one that was clear wasn't to my liking.
Now, there was a set of expectations that you just said just flat did not work.
Yeah.
Now, when you strayed from this, how did that make you feel? You're going against like the established best practice.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It was hard because my mother, God love her, had a very rough childhood of her own. So she had a lot of invested in my being her version of a wonderful little girl with a pink tiara and little tutus and all girly and popular. God help my poor mother. She got me, the brat, the kid who would take her toys and go home if you didn't play my way. I mean, I was totally different. I wasn't genetically related. And my wiring gave her a lot of trouble. And it gave me trouble because it's hard to fight society.
Yes.
It's very hard. And she wasn't wrong in a lot of it, but she was wrong for me. And it was hard for her to work with me because I really wasn't the little girl that she deserved. Not at that point. I was a tough kid I can't tell you. I was a tough kid. So
yeah, we're roughly in the same age bracket. And and I was the first to do a lot of things too. I was the first to leave home, didn't come back. I was the first to get divorced. I mean, that just didn't happen. Is that what you found when you're the first?
Yep. And I was also the first. I mean, I got married. I met him when I was 20 or 21. His family knew my family kind of like through 6 or 8, but they knew. Good family. He'd come back from Vietnam. It was not known back in 1968 about PTSD. Right. A lot of guys and a few women came back with horrible. He had it. Mm-hmm. I know now he did. I didn't know then. I just knew he was kind of a tough guy, but he had money. He had an aura. He was very sure of himself. He was also Jewish, as I am. I mean, it fit sort of.
Right.
And asked me to marry him. And that was what you were supposed to do.
That's right. So,
by golly, we got married. And I found out on my honeymoon that I really didn't like him at all. I didn't like his sense of humor. Oh, it was not fun. But I was married. Okay. Right. He wasn't abusive. He was just a tough guy. Mm-hmm. And he did the best he could. And so we managed for 17 years to kind of limp along and have 2 wonderful daughters. And at some point, I don't know where the courage came from. This was the second life-altering decision. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to happen. I can't stay in this marriage. I can't. Mm-hmm. But like you, I was the first. Nobody in my family, nobody in my family's friends and social, no one. Susan had to be the leader.
That's oh my right.
God. My poor parents, they tried so hard to support me. And they loved me and they wanted the best for me. But in their world, you stayed married.
That's right.
You stayed married. It was really unthinkable. So I know it was the right decision, but it was hard on all of us. It was hard on my 2 daughters who were 13 and 11 when we finally said goodbye, or 12 and 10. It was hard on me only because I had no support. There was no really easy way to be divorced in 1980. Oh, heck, 4 or 5. Right. When nobody else was doing it. It was really not fun. So, but it was the right decision. There's no question.
You had, Susan, you had another life-altering event. You've had several, but you had another one that involved your daughter, who was then 16 at the time.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened.
I know that I wasn't the greatest mother for a couple of years. And I just say that because I know it's true. I don't even remember those couple of years between when she was roughly 14 to 16, because I was trying so hard to survive. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to be divorced. I didn't know how to be married, but I really didn't know how to be divorced. I changed jobs a couple of times. My younger daughter helped her sister hide some of what was going on. I knew there was trouble, but I never imagined the kind of trouble that we could have been in had I not been getting my nails done one day with the woman I still go to. 35 years later, whatever number of years it is, who said, my aunt just put her son in a local drug rehab. He's having a lot of problems. And my ears went up and every part of my body went, there's something local. I kind of missed the word drugs. And she said, yeah. And then I met the woman and we chit-chatted. I can't tell you why I said, okay, we're going to do that. I had no idea if my daughter was doing drugs. I did know we had all kinds of awkwardnesses and more than I thought we should. I know that my ex-husband, who was very, very much ex and had remarried, we went and almost kidnapped her out of a Burger King where she was working. You couldn't probably do that today.
Right.
Hand on wrist, you're going with us. Okay, Dad. He was the kind of guy you said okay to. And it was local. And they took her from me. And I've never been so scared and happy all at the same time. It was awful. But it was a family-run drug rehab, family run with some professionals. It wasn't just people who didn't know what they were doing. Right. There were some professionals, but the point which saved my life, this is number 3, major life altering. It was family oriented so that you couldn't escape and you had to be part of it, whether you liked it or not, because if family wasn't coming in for the Monday and Friday night big meets, your kid couldn't stay. It was very simple. Wow. Because so many of those kids were doing drugs and were seriously in trouble, you couldn't send them back to the family as they were. And that was a really smart decision. And there was no BS there. I mean, I got my mouth shut quite a few times by people who said, that's not how life works. It isn't, really? So the Monday nights were normally intake nights where the new people like me and my ex-husband and his wife and the kids, I mean, the whole family, if you were going to interact with this child coming back to your house someday, you had to be different. You had to understand a lot of stuff. Monday nights were intake. We had, I don't know, something like 4 weeks of it. Then Friday night we had to go, but I don't remember us being in the big all-parent group. I think it was another smaller group of the new people is what I remember. I'd been there maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I don't know now. And one of the professionals came and said, hey, Susan, or Sue, whatever she called me. We got a couple of new people, new parents. Would you mind terribly not going to group and sitting and helping them? Something like that. Well, sure. I mean, I can talk to people about what, so I did. And then we had another couple of people and then another couple of people. And at some point, the Monday nights that I was starting to run on my own, I couldn't just sit and talk the way we're doing now. I had to stand because there were maybe 15 people in this little room. If somebody had said to me, hey, Susan, you want to stand up and talk to people? Not going to happen. I think I told you I fainted dead away doing a book report when I was about 11 or 12 in 6th grade. Got up, stood, looked at everyone and gone. There was no easy way I was ever going to be willingly up in front of a group that way. But because it was that gradual process of just talking, it wasn't anything special. And then, all right, so I stood up because I wanted to reach the people on the way back. No biggie. And a few months after that, they came to me and said, we'd like you to work with us on the Friday night group, which I'd been a part of seated. Whoa, you want me up front? There. I can only tell you, Frank, that as much as we all loved our kids, we did not want to be at those meetings. They were hard. They were demanding. And they were, if you weren't going to be there, take your kid and go home. It was absolute mayhem some nights. Some chairs got thrown. Some punches got thrown. More often the newer people. And when I was standing up there, what was nice is they would be some of the parents of the kids farther along in the program on the outside edges. It was not like I was up there going to get hit, but it was well conceived because there had to be the emotional release. You had to learn, yeah, your kid did drugs. I'm luckier than most. My daughter did not do much in the way of drugs. She was more of a kid hunting for drugs, but she didn't get into it that much. She was just a kid in trouble. But she stayed a full year, no school, didn't live with me for 3 months, maybe. Then when she came back, we then were a household that took in one new kid, brand new in the program. And that's how, again, it worked. Tremendous opportunity. I stayed for 4 more years. when our daughter graduated, because I'd found something that spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really given the thought of helping the way I could help other people. And really, there's nobody better to do it than somebody who's been through it.
Exactly.
You walk in and say, okay, this is what you got to do. And everybody goes, and who are you?
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. This was parents helping parents through the experience that was at least close enough to the same, that how could you not listen?
That's right.
So I stayed 4 more years. My daughter kept saying, Mom, are you ever going to graduate? No. Eventually I did. And eventually, unfortunately, the program had to shut down because it was not insurance funded. At some point it had to.
Yeah.
But Frank, beyond gratitude that we got it when we needed it, and that it made a huge difference, not just in my life, but both daughters, because siblings had to go to their own group every Monday and every Friday because siblings were aching. A lot of them were enabling. They were helping.
Yes.
As much as they knew they probably shouldn't, they had to.
Right.
So it was remarkable.
That's incredible. When you told me that story, I thought, wow, that's amazing. What I also found amazing, Susan, is you had this horrifying fear of speaking. And it's incredible what we will do. We'll overcome our greatest fears if it involves our children. So where did this courage to get up there and speak come from? And you did this for 4 years.
Yeah, because it was speaking just in a little room of people, and then it was speaking in the big group, but it was the incremental steps. It's like all the old jokes about the frog in the water, which is kind of ugly because the frog dies. But the reality, you don't know if you do it by bit, it's not terrifying. Mm-hmm. If they'd said, Susan, go on out there and do that. It's like, yeah, no way, not happening. Not me. No. But it was help 2 people, help 6 people, help 15 stand up to talk. Big whoop. I knew the material. I was comfortable in the setting. You want to do Friday night? No. Sure. And it worked. And I wasn't the only one. By the way, I wasn't the only one up front. There were like 2 or 3 others. We took turns, but we were still very visible and mm-hmm. we still had things to offer. So remarkable. Wow.
So after your daughter improved and you spent the 4 years doing this, then there was yet another life-altering event that came into play involving speaking. Tell us what happened.
Second husband, 5 years, bad choice. However, I had gone through a couple of different jobs and wasn't finding anything that I really loved. I'd worked for a local big company for several years, but they went out of business. Then I tried this little thing and that little thing, and it wasn't clicking. He happened to see an ad in the newspaper in the Sunday Boston Globe. And I mean, we're talking a quarter page. I can't even imagine what it cost Fred Pryor seminars back in the day. Mm-hmm. That said, would you like to be a speaker with the best and biggest speaking company in the world? A, I'd never heard of them, but why would I? B, I didn't see myself as a public speaker. I had spoken at a drug rehab.
Right.
I mean, the mindset wasn't, oh, sure, that's me. But it was my husband's idea. I'll give him credit. That was one of maybe 5 good things we got through with in our 5 years. But it was huge. He said, no, really, you worked over at that place. Why don't you just call them? You've got to be kidding. But I did. I don't know where the courage came from. I don't. It just was sitting in there. So I probably, did we email back then? Heck if I remember. I think I called. Sure, they set it up for meet at a hotel. It was an okay place in a town near Boston that I'd heard of, but I had to drive in. I had to find it. I mean, it was a big thing. Come, we're going to video you. You're going to do what? Okay. Give us 8 minutes of a business thing. Honestly, I don't know. I've seen the video. Oh my word. So bad. But I got in there, and the vice president of Pryor at the time, whose name I cannot remember, 6'6", Jagunda human, very nice. I'm waiting out in this little ante room, nervous as you come. He finally came out and said, Ms. Rooks, which was not my name back then. Do you want to come on in? Because apparently there's no one else. Yes, I do. I want to get it over with. Please let me go. Please, 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 please. Okay. I went in my little suit. God help us all. I don't know what I talked about. I really don't. It was an 8-minute agonizing 8-minute. And I did a lot of, I didn't know what to do with my body. It showed. Finished. He said, thank you so much. And I went out to the ante room for a minute. And for some reason, he came out to talk to me. And no one else showed up. So we talked for about 10 minutes. That's why I got the job. It wasn't the presentation. I promise you that. It was the friendly. It was the fact that we could kibitz, Jewish for talk. We could chit chat, because the presentation you can learn, but if you're not friendly and people don't like you, then it doesn't matter. They're out. They're gone at noon. They're actually gone at 10:15 if they stay that long. We're talking full day seminars, 6 hours. Oh, dear heaven. 3 or 4 weeks later, we get a phone call. Husband hands me the phone. It's them. Well, we really liked what we saw. I've still wondered to this day how that woman said that. But okay, my video. We're wondering, which would you like to teach? Budgeting or computers? Now, we're talking computers before there were computers, but there were slides you could put up and show people. I had majored in accounting at college when I finally did that, but I shouldn't have. I can do 10% of anything, but numbers are not my thing. But it sounded smarter than computers. I said, oh, well, the budgeting, I guess. What they did then was they would send you one of their star performers on a video for 6 hours. And you'd watch it, you'd get the workbook, and you'd get the jokes, and you'd get the framework for it. I remember the guy had a funny name. I don't remember what the name was, but it was a name I couldn't make a joke out of it. I didn't have that name. But I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I can do it. First time out, whenever it was, a month or so later, a guy gets up after maybe 15 minutes of me talking. I don't know what you think you're talking about, lady, but you have no idea what you just said. It was completely wrong. You are the worst presenter I've ever seen. And he stormed out. Oxygen left the room with him, but I stayed. Again, I don't know how. I don't. I remember it as clearly as anything, because I've never imagined that. And he was right, by the way. I completely went A and B when it should have been B and A, whatever it was. I called back to Pryor at noon. Okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. But I had a 2-week commitment, Frank. I said, all right, I'll do the 2 weeks somehow. Don't know how. What else can I do? Well, what do you want to do? I said, I'll do one of those women's topics, which we called them back then. No, all the women have taken them. Okay. Would you consider the grammar one? It didn't sound any worse than accounting and budgeting. Right. So I thought, well, sure. How hard could it be? I did 6 months of it. By the way, the workbook had a few errors here and there and made me cranky. A woman came up to me at the end of one class, God bless her, and I've written about this before. She gave me the courage. She said, oh, my dear girl, you're so wonderful. You were really good up front. And I'm basking because I'm so happy nobody ever walked out of the class. And she says, I made a couple of notes in the workbook. You might want to take a look. And I'm just beaming. Oh, she liked me. Oh, my gosh, isn't that wonderful? I went back up to my room, and I opened it up, and it bled red. I don't think there was a single page that she hadn't circled something and said, no, wrong. This is the... A, she was kind enough to sit for 6 hours. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have been gone by noon. B, she was private, totally kind. I still remember her. And I sat down and thought, well, I actually like teaching this one. What the heck's wrong with that? Oh, son of a gun. That's not what it says in the Greg reference manual. Oh, I dug in and decided I was going to be the best darn grammar teacher they've ever had, which proved to be true, by the way, which is how I got the grammar goddess name, because back then you called in on an 800 number when you had a question about a topic you did, and somebody else in that topic would try to answer. I started answering a lot of the grammar questions, if only because I'd gone through the Greg reference manual page by page by page. And somebody tagged me with, oh my gosh, you are such a grammar goddess. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I knew I was going to hang on to that. And so, yes, I worked for Fred Pryor for 5 years internationally. I did not teach grammar outside the United States. They told me I could just tell people it's a different version. I said, no, that's not how it works. No, I will teach other things. And I did. Not budgeting, not computers, but things that I could at least time management. Anybody can teach that. And it was an extraordinary 5 years. I have more stories about things that didn't go well and things that did go well. But the fun ones are the ones that you think, you got to be kidding. You're in the middle of this and there's no materials because they didn't book the hotel or send you the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the slides didn't show up. Or the AC, the video guy is wrong. And there's always something. You never know.
Yeah. But when you're 1,000 or 5,000 miles away from home, it's a whole other level of, you've got to be kidding. But you know what, Frank? I loved that. I just ate it up. They also gave me the privilege of being one of their on-site, whatever the heck they called us, on-site people, meaning a company would call prior and say, we need somebody to come in and teach this to our people. And that's where I started my own company, because I got the experience of going into companies and changing the material a little bit with what they needed, talking to only maybe 15 or 20 people, not 300 in this big auditorium, and realized that was good. I just didn't want to do their material anymore. I wanted my own.
So Susan, tell us, what does a grammar goddess do?
Today, what do I do?
Yes.
I try to remember that I'm an editor. Was not a dream. I mean, my mother used to tell people I was reading when I was about 18 months old. Was I reading? Probably not. I might have known an A or a B. I mean, she was just so proud of me because apparently I've got a brain. But I didn't expect where I am today. About 11 or 12 years ago, a friend I'd met through BNI, Business Network International. I was one of their directors for 5 years. 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. I met her and she called me randomly and said, hey, Susan, I've written a little book. I wonder if you'd look at it. Okay, sure, I'll look at anything. Why do you want me to look at it? She says, well, you'll know if I messed up the grammar. Oh, okay. Yeah, fine. Sent it back. She wrote another book about her mother, her mother, the saint. Would you look at this one? Sure. It took me probably a full year before I said, oh, wait, what am I doing? Because then she asked a friend, hey, you need to talk to Susan. She really does this stuff really well. I didn't know how to say I was an editor, copy editor. I had no idea that those functions exactly existed. I was just helping a friend, Frank. Yeah, and believe me, she could use the help because she's creative as all get out, but where semicolons and commas go, she's not all that good. And that's fine. She'll tell you to that this day. It's fun. And one day I woke up and said, I think I'm an editor of some sort. So I went and looked up the definitions. By golly, what I'm not is a developmental editor. The person who takes your idea and says, okay, here's how you're going to flesh it out. Oh, no. You bring it to me, all done. Editing is an incredibly complex gift to have, but it doesn't include, for me, helping you develop it. Not beyond a certain point. My mind just doesn't go there. I need to see what you wrote. Then I can say, wait a minute, Frank, wouldn't this section be better 4 pages later? You've talked here and you talk here, but in the middle, they don't connect. That I can do. And of course, the grammar, which is copy editing to a large extent. There are some other titles of editing, but I don't know of anyone in my world that is now editing who doesn't mix them, because you can't just say, I'm only going to do this bit of it. If I see a wrong word and I'm a line editor and maybe I'm not supposed to do it that, I'm going to tell you, by the way, Frank, that's the wrong affect effect thing, or whatever else it might be. Love it beyond loving it. It fits me like a glove. I still have that imposter syndrome. There are moments, but I think, you know what? I've got 45 books that I've worked on. I've got 3 right now in production. I've got a couple of company clients. I have one woman, Mary Henderson, down in Australia, who sends me, because she works with a lot of American, helping them succeed. Thank goodness, because American grammar is a little different than Australian or Canadian or anyone else's.
Very much.
She just sent me something. It was an interview, and I do it in American stuff. All around the world I worked, because we have the internet. And as long as I can find the answers, because I can go on and say, okay, tell me about Canadian English, find the 3 or 4 things that are completely different and the ones that are the same, then we're good. Love it. I learn. That's the best part. Frank, I don't know what you do. You know what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I read some of this stuff and think, holy mackerel, you know that? Wow. I mean, I've worked with Melissa Hughes, who is an absolute brainiac. She scares me to death. She's so smart in how our brain works. And I read it and think, wow. All these other people, a client down in Florida, Joe Samnick, who's an expert tree person. I had no idea there were experts that did trees, and they can tell you why it died and why it fell over. And he goes to court and helps out. I mean, wow. Who knew?
It's incredible.
This is the piece that I love the most.
And that is so, I've written now 6 books, and editing is a pain in the butt because I cannot read what I wrote because I see what I meant.
Yeah.
And that's why what you do is so critical, is then you put it out, even an article. We both write for Biz Catalyst 360, which is an internet
with Dennis Potoko, absolutely.
Magazine system. And even then you write it and it's a short 1 paragraph maybe. And then you look at it and you, okay, I got it. Then you send it, and everybody's a great editor. Someone told me this one time. Everyone's a great editor after they press send. Mm-hmm.
We all are. And unfortunately with Dennis's thing, we can't go back and do our own. But when I read them, I'm on his, what does he call it? Editorial Board of Excellence. I think it's what it's called. I don't know. I will say, typo alert, send him an email and say, okay, 2nd paragraph of Frank's latest affect defect. I just yellow it. It's no big deal. He'll change it for me, or you, or whoever wrote it. And I don't do the tiny, tiny things, but if something is smacking me in the face, because I didn't write it, I'm just going, read. Oh, no. No. And I don't make big things. It's not fair. The author, I don't have the permission to completely change it, but affect defect or it's an it's, apostrophe or not. We just
a lot's another one. It's
a
2
lot.
words, not 1.
Space LOT. Thank you.
Yes.
It's what it, and I can't read a book now.
Because you're always editing.
I read and I think, you published this, huh? Okay. Okay. But it's a fun job. The other piece of it, I'm home. And given this year of 2020, I can work virtually anywhere in the world. I like being on my own. I have my 2 small dogs who I've got my front windows, the shades are down because if they see someone walking, they will bark. And that would not be fun. Mm-hmm. But I can work from home, and I have for 25 years. And I learn with every client. I honor them because they're so smart where they are.
That is excellent. Now, Susan, when we spoke, this impressed me. You told me that despite all the hardships and the challenges that you faced, that you believe that you have a guardian angel, or some people call a spirit guide. Elaborate on that. Where does that come from?
Oh, I have one. I mean, let's face it. She started me with great genetics. I'm 74 years old. I'm putting that out to the world. I don't care if you know. I was born in 1946. I know I look good, but the better part is I feel good. I have no drugs, no nothing. I take a leave occasionally. Big whoop. A glass of wine at night, sometimes 2. But I'm healthy. I walk with my little dogs 3 to 4 miles every day in this little village that I moved to by the ocean in southeastern Mass, right on the bay. I mean, right on the bay, 4 houses up from water. And I'm grateful. And it started with the genetics. That's not the whole of it. But if you have good genetics, you have at least more of a shot. I got adopted by a wonderful family. My mother and I had our issues, but she still loved me. And I always knew I was cared for. And I have enough smarts to at least mostly not get into too much trouble. Although I was really good in my younger days of jumping off a cliff and going, whoa, that was a steep one. This guardian angel has pushed me and shoved me and said, no, you're not going there. You're going here. No, go here. Get your nails done. Listen to her aunt, and go. Go do this. Yes, you're going to go and talk to that guy in Boston, Somerville. Okay. A part of Boston. You're going to go there and you're going to find the town. You're going to find the hotel and you're going. Go, go, go. I can't explain it easily, and I'm not really that spiritual. I'm not into that, but I've always thought somebody sure has organized this life well for me because I've never planned to be where I am.
And that's it. That's exactly the point of this whole interview is, number one, it's never too late.
Yeah.
If, as I said in the beginning, if you're listening and watching, and if you're willing to take action, which you have done your whole life.
Yeah.
Now, we're just about out of time, Susan. So what last thoughts, words would you like to leave with the viewers today? What's the last impression you want to have with them?
I grew up in such an easy world in some ways that I'm not trying to say that everybody's going to have all the privileges that I know I had. They're not. I do think that most of us have an ability to be more than we might think we can be. Being brave is not easy, and it's harder for many people than it was for me. And yet the life we're living, we still have our own self-imposed limits. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just told you, I think some days that I am suffering from, what's the term I just used? My brain just went off and my mouth keeps moving. That I'm sometimes thinking that I'm not really an editor. Okay, but I am. Up here, the limiting beliefs are really what we all need to challenge, no matter who we are, what it is that we're faced with, because the outside world isn't always doing the damage.
That's right.
I hear myself say, Susan, you're really astute. No, I'm not. What I just did was dumb. I'm okay. I mean, I have to do the self-talk the way everyone does. So that would be my thought is, we have more to offer than we might think.
Absolutely.
But we have to allow ourselves to.
That's a great story. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're just about out of time. Once again, Susan, thank you so much for putting it out there and giving us this incredible story.
Well, I'm grateful that you asked, you mentioned and said, sure, let's try this. I'm tickled.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we say at the end of every show is when life gets hard, and it will, please do three things. Look up, get up, never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces. If you have to deal with your grief, deal with the grief and start moving forward, and better times and better people will come into your life. You can see this show on ROKU TV, Life-Altering Events, Frank Zacarri channel. You can also see it on YouTube. And if you look on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can see all the episodes that we've done here. If you need more information on Susan, you can contact her directly or contact me, and I'll make sure that she does get it. Let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. I do this every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Susan showed us where many, many of those rocks are. Join us again next week for another life-altering event. Thank you again.